Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Know-How is brought to you by lynda.com. Lynda.com is an easy and affordable way to help you learn. Instantly stream thousands of courses created by experts on business, software, web development, graphic design, and more. For a free trial, visit lynda.com/knowhow. That's LYNDA.com/knowhow. On this episode of Know-How, we're going to fix your sticky windows, your feedback, and then it's Quadcopter madness.
We're gonna get this transition?
Yeah. Ready? And 3, 2. Welcome to Know-How. It's the Twitch show where we bend, build, break, and upgrade. I'm Father Robert Ballas.
And I'm Brian Burnett.
For the next 45, 50...
It's been going an hour the last few weeks.
Next 60 minutes, we're going to be showing you some of the projects that we've been working on over the last couple of weeks, I'd say. You know, we're going to pour all this knowledge straight out our knowledge holes.
Oh, boy. Yeah, you better have a bucket ready for that.
That's not...
We're on it, Brian.
Oh, boy.
No, but before we do that, we actually did want to talk about one story that's been making the rounds. It's interesting.
It is interesting. It's a Kickstarter.
It is.
And it's 2014. I think we've been wanting flying cars, and on that list would also be hoverboards.
Hoverboards, yeah. We were promised hoverboards. I don't know why we don't yet have our hoverboards.
It's the future. We're here.
Yeah.
We're waiting.
We're waiting. Yeah, so this Kickstarter is from a company called Hendo, and they've made, the first hoverboard. It's raised $304,338 out of $250,000 of their original goal. It has about 1,621. It's gone up since I wrote this a couple of minutes ago.
It still has 52 days to go.
52 days ago. They're already fully funded. Now, most of the pledges in this Kickstarter will get stickers and shirts and like a 5-minute ride or on a hoverboard. But once you start pledging $299 or more, then you start to actually get the tech. It's what they call the white box developer kit, which actually has their hovering engine. It's not a board, but it's a little thing. Now, if you had $10,000, you could have gotten an actual hoverboard, but they were only going to offer 10 of those, and they're already all gone.
Okay, but we're watching this video here of the guy sliding back and forth, but let's think about how this works.
Yes.
There's a material, non-ferrous material that they're hovering over, which is like this basic principle has been around for a long time.
Long time. Yeah.
The first thing I thought of was magnetic trains that use this. So it's not like this is something completely revolutionary.
Right. The principles here are not super earth-shattering. We've known about magnetism and repulsion from like poles for a long time. What they've done is they've scaled down the cost, and they've scaled down the amount of equipment you need to get a stable magnetic field. So the problem, as a kid, if you ever put magnets on top of each other, you notice as you try to move them along, it dips and wanes, and then suddenly the field inverts and
then it flips and wants to stick to each other.
Yeah, it's difficult to get a stable field repulsion because of all the eddy currents that happen whenever you're dealing with magnetism. They've figured out a very novel way of getting a stable field within those eddy currents. Now, again, you need to have a surface that's metallic, non-iron metallic, so that is kind of limiting what the usefulness is going to be. But it's still cool tech. It's still interesting. It's just, I don't think it's going to be the hoverboard everyone thinks it's going to be.
Yeah, the expectation has been set to where you could just go out in the street and hover around is what I want. But I don't think there's going to be any skate parks or anything that have this material laid down anytime soon.
Just cause.
Yeah.
In case someone shows up with a $10,000 hoverboard.
Well, and then the point you were making too is on a skateboard, it uses friction to help maneuver yourself.
It gives you lateral stability, right? So a skateboard will move forward and back, but it will not move easily side to side.
Right.
A hoverboard has none of that.
Well, the example you gave me was, if you want to experience this, put oil on top of a granite countertop and try and stand on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're going to be sliding. You kind of have to have your balance perfect before you could start using it.
We both have perfect balance.
We do.
I don't think we've ever fallen or run into anything. No.
I've never tripped.
We're pretty much athletes.
Yes, super athletes. So I'm just waiting for my Hendo Hoverboard, and hopefully I'll be able to go over water.
You gotta have power to go over water, you bojo. That's why I was waiting for that. Thank you, Padre.
Well, on that note, you know what? Let's take a break to talk about the first sponsor of Know How, and of course, it's Linda. Now, you heard of Linda, right, Brian?
I've been using it. I've been using it to play with Android Studio.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. I've actually been using it for Adobe Premiere. I'm still getting back into it. It's funny because I've been editing with Premiere for like 10 years now, but there are some things that I should have known, or maybe I did know, but I'm kind of recalling it now.
Yeah, you get a little rusty.
You get rusty.
You gotta dust off the old cranium.
Exactly, and that's what Linda lets you do. It lets you learn something brand new, it lets you refresh on the knowledge that you already have, or it lets you update your existing skills. Linda is the one-stop shop on the internet for knowledge, a knowledge repository, if you will, a place to go whenever you need to update your skills or find out what's the latest and greatest in your field. Now, when we use lynda.com, we go to the easy and affordable way to help us learn. You can stream thousands of courses created by experts on software, web development, graphic design, and more. Lynda.com works directly with industry experts and software companies to provide timely training, often the same day that new versions or releases hit the market, so you'll always be up to speed. All courses are produced at the highest quality. They're not like a lot of YouTube videos, which though I love, sometimes the lighting is off or the sound is off or it's just a weird angle. You get none of that with a Lynda course. You get the perfectly produced videos so that you can concentrate on learning rather than nitpicking the production. Now, their tools include things like searchable transcripts and playlists and certificates of course completion, which you can publish to your LinkedIn profile so that potential employers know what you've trained in. Whether you're a beginner or advanced, lynda.com has courses for all experience levels. You get to learn while you're on the go with the lynda.com app for iOS or Android, and they've got one low monthly price of $25 that gives you unlimited access to over 100,000 video tutorials. Premium plan members can also download project files and practice along with the instructor, and premium members with an annual plan can download courses to watch offline, which is perfect because sometimes you're going to be in a place where you need the reference. You need to be able to go through that transcript and find the answer to your problem, but you're not going to have access to the internet, or you're not going to have access to a fast connection. That's why Lynda lets you download if you become a premium member. They've also got multiple GoPro courses, including creative GoPro photography and video techniques. So if, like me, you're getting into quadcopters and you're going to be mounting a GoPro, well, learn up on that GoPro first so that your video isn't shaky and horrible and badly framed. Now, for any software you rely on, lynda.com can help you stay current with all your software updates and learn the ins and outs to be more efficient and productive. And you've got a special offer just for you to access all the courses free for 7 days. Visit lynda.com/knowhow to try lynda.com free for 7 days. That's lynda.com/knowhow. And we thank Lynda for their support of Know How. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, if you're going to be strapping a relatively expensive GoPro to a relatively expensive quadcopter, you should probably learn how to fly it first.
Yeah, it's funny because every once in a while I'll see videos that get put up on YouTube, and it's obviously someone's like first couple of flights with a quadcopter. And
those ones are fun though. I enjoy watching those sometimes. Like the one where the guy goes over the canyon and it's about to run out of battery, so it goes home. It goes back to home and it flies straight into the side of a mountain.
That's actually, and the best part about the video is they did the majestic music all the way up to the point.
It's got the beautiful sunrise and everything, and then all of a sudden the drone just suddenly.
Yeah, so drone technology is great unless you've got big columns of rock in the way. Speaking of drone technology, we're going to...
Exactly. You bojo.
Oh my gosh.
You gotta have power.
This episode of Know How brought to you by DMC takedown notices.
That's all right. Okay. We'll cut it out in post.
Let's talk a little bit about quadcopters. We got some feedback that we wanted to get from our Google Plus group. And the first one actually came to us from a user by the name of Gilbert Nard. And Alex, if you go ahead and throw that link up there. He asks, I'm glad you're doing a quadcopter series. I'm planning on building one. I really like the idea of buying an inexpensive one to learn to fly on. I will probably buy the one you showed on the episode, and I have a question about it. Could I use the controller for the one that I built? Gilbert, this is actually an excellent question. We get this a lot, you know, because you want to be able to reuse your gear. You don't want to just buy it once and then let it go to waste. Well, first of all, congratulations on deciding to buy a trainer, because these things...
I think we've gotten almost everyone in the studio to buy one.
Yeah. They're fun, they're almost indestructible, and they will teach you how to fly a quadcopter. Now, Alex, if you go ahead and drop over to our overhead, this is the remote that comes with this quadcopter. It's not a bad remote. It's a 6-channel, and it's actually quite nice.
But aren't these buttons at the bottom fake?
Those are fake buttons, but, you know, but it's still 6-channel.
Okay,
this is a 6-channel. This is what I'm using for our build. It's a FlySky. It's not super expensive, but it is a bit heftier. It does have a few more options than the other one.
And we've used this for our lunchbox too, haven't we?
Yes. We've gone back and forth. Here's the problem, Alex. If you go ahead and show the picture that I have there in the box, if you get one of these trainers, that board in the center, that's really the only electronics that are in there. You've got that and then the 4 motors.
Right.
Now that one board has the receiver, it has the flight controller, it has the electronic speed controllers, which means that there's no way to separate the receiver unit from that central unit to be able to reuse this controller. It doesn't work, and it's not going to bind with a different receiver.
Yeah.
So it would be great if you could. But yeah, it's not going to work. And then the other thing is, this remote is going to top out at around 300 feet. Once you get 300 feet away, you start getting weird things happening.
Losing the connection.
Yeah. The FlySky and some of the dedicated controllers will go much further, and they actually have, like I have a homing procedure on this, where if the receiver loses its signal, it'll actually try to start coming back until it reacquires. If you go out of signal with that,
it just drops.
It will actually just drop from the sky.
Yeah.
Which is bad. Yeah.
Okay.
So
good to know.
Thank you for getting the trainer, and I really think that everyone should start with the trainer, because it's not just that it's going to survive all your crashes. It's that even something like this, a simple 250 class, this hitting you hurts a whole heck of a lot more than this hitting you. I've been hit by these in the head. That's fine.
Yeah. This, on purpose even.
Yeah, on purpose, just to show off that it doesn't hurt. If this falls from the sky, this will cut someone. This will cause stitches. So
don't fly that over a playground or anything like that.
Yeah, there we go.
Children, watch out.
Children, be careful. Second piece of feedback we have is from a user by the name of Even Treeleven.
Even Treeleven.
Ian Treeleven. Why did I say even? I don't know. He writes, my home router's DNS service is flaky. It's an Action Tech 1200. I can specify which DNSs to advertise from the router. Is there any reason to include the router in the list of DNSs? I moved its 192.168.1.254 entry to the secondary DNS spot, using my ISP's DNS as the primary. Steve Gibson's DNS bench says that's the wrong way around for performance, but I want to make sure I get reliable internet rather than flaky internet. Any advice? Well, Ian, you're in luck, because we've got plenty of advice.
If there's one thing Padre knows, it's routers.
It's routers. It's routers. I'd say the way you're doing it right now is absolutely positively don't do it that way.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right.
That's not good. Yeah.
Because you can look up your ISP's DNS address, and I've done that, but one of the ones that's been more reliable for me is Google's DNS.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'd say is dump both of those. You really don't want to use the DNS server in your router, because there really isn't a DNS server in your router. It's just a DNS forwarder. You don't want to use the DNS server for your ISP unless you have an exceptional ISP, because most ISP DNS servers are way oversubscribed. They don't spend enough money on the infrastructure. So what happens is, when you type in twit.tv, you get an extraordinarily long wait, not because the connection is slow, but because it's taking so long for that DNS server to give you the proper numbers for you to access that server. What you want to do is you want to use a third-party server with really good reliability and a good reputation. There's 2 I can think of off the top of my head. The first one is Google, which, as you mentioned, is 8.8.8.8. Really easy to remember.
Super easy to remember. And then the other one is OpenDNS?
OpenDNS, which is 208.67.220.220 or
a little harder to remember.
I don't know why those numbers are stuck in my head. It was like the first third-party DNS I ever used, and now it's
ingrained.
Oh. Yeah, you'll get much better performance, and the one caveat is if you decide to go with a super high-end router. We are actually playing around with pfSense because we want to show you how that works. That can cache DNS entries locally, which can be crazy, crazy fast. But since you're using that action tech, I'd say, no, ditch the DNS server for your router, ditch your ISP's DNS server. And you can always drop by episode 81 of Know-How because I did a full segment on fixing DNS.
Right. And, play around with it because Google might not work as well in certain areas as others. I mean, here in the North Bay, it works pretty well, but maybe not where you live. So play around with it.
And actually, I know that in that same Google Plus grouping, people were suggesting that you use Steve Gibson's DNS tool. I believe you found it. Use that on both Google DNS and OpenDNS. See which one works better for you. I'd say you put one in the first spot and one in the second spot. You can't go wrong.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah. The last bit of feedback, and I actually kind of like this. This is from Jason Perry. He had a question about a segment we did the other day about fiber. Remember when we were talking about fiber taps?
Yeah, and how you would do it by hand.
Yeah, you could do it by hand.
You could do it by hand,
really,
but
you need a steady hand.
Yeah.
But he wanted to know, first, is there a standard for fiber optic networks? And second, the only reason I would be interested in fiber optic is speed, but every card I have seen isn't faster than gig-e. What speeds can your standard fiber home network reach? Okay, so Jason, let me answer that backwards. Don't use fiber for speed. We don't use fiber for speed in networks because, for example, 10 gig is about the fastest you can get over commercially available fiber. There's 40 and 80 and 100 gig, but those are very specialized. I can get that over copper. I've been able to get 10 gig over copper for about the last 7 years. It's not about speed. What fiber gives you is it gives you distance. You can go a lot further with fiber, and it also gives you the ability to not have any interference. A copper conductor is essentially an antenna. So if you run through a very RF-rich area, it's going to pick up stray signals, and then you get retransmits, and your speed goes down. Fiber it's all glass and plastic. Right. There's no antenna here to pick up any of those stray signals. You're not going to get interference unless you've got someone who cut the fiber and is shining a laser into it.
Right. So, and the only thing, you were saying with the distance, it's as fast as light can travel. Right?
It's fast as light, but I mean, you're going to get the same speeds with copper. But what this will give you is it will give you distances in kilometers rather than in feet.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah. And now, back to the first question, is there a standard for fiber? There are actually multiple standards for fiber. The one that you need to know is the difference between multi-mode and single mode. And actually, you know what? Next week, I will show you, I can actually show you the difference between multi-mode and single-mode fiber. But an easy way to imagine it is in multi-mode fiber, the laser, imagine it's inside this little cable here. The laser's bouncing back and forth until it gets to the end, right?
Right.
In single-mode fiber, it goes in one smooth line. It never hits the side.
So is it faster then?
It's not that it's faster, it's that you can get the signal to go longer.
Oh, okay.
Much, much further. Yeah.
So, I mean, would it make sense to use fiber in a home network where it's not there's not long distances between everything? Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
It's more expensive and you're not going to get any speed. The only time I would suggest using fiber in a home is if you've got a huge home that's running, where individual runs will be longer than 300 feet, or if for some reason you live next to a radio station and you're
and the RF is that bad.
And RF is that bad, but yeah.
Maybe if you had like a guest house, way off the property, out in the yard or something.
Yeah, I've actually done runs outside of my house to neighbors' houses with fiber, and for the simple reason it doesn't conduct. I'm in some stormy areas and I don't want a lightning strike to conduct through my copper, so I use fiber.
Oh.
But those are really off cases. Now, here's another thing about fiber. When you start looking at standards, what you really want to look at is you want to look at these things. Go ahead and go to the overhead here. These are SFPs. These are modules that allow me to interface equipment with different fiber technologies. And when I say different fiber technologies, I mean the wavelength of the light that it transmits at. So like these are 850 nanometer. You can swap out these modules for different speeds. Like these are 1 gig. This is a 10 gig module. This is crazy expensive. But you're using the same fiber. You're just using different types of light through it to get different speeds.
Because it doesn't matter what the actual material of the fiber is, it's just what is shooting.
Well, I mean, there's higher quality fiber, which is good. But like, for example, this is what's called an LC connector. It looks like this little skinny barrel. These are LC modules. This is what's called an SC connector. These are a little bit older, but they're still very widely used. Now, the nice thing about these is I can convert back and forth because all I need is 2 pieces of fiber for every connection, one inbound and one outbound. And it makes it super simple. When you're setting up a data center, if a connection is not working, what you can typically do is just roll it. Just flip it, and then it works.
That's cool.
Yeah. So standards, yes, plenty of standards. Use it at home? No.
Not really, yeah. I mean, we use it here at TWiT, but we have a very specific use case, so.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, people are commenting on my, go ahead and the overhead, my Ziploc bag. If you'll notice, this is my bad fiber bag. So anytime I've got bad fiber, it goes into this.
Whoa, what quantifies it as bad?
Oh, typically it just means it's dirty.
Oh, so you've been...
Like this is a dead module. That's why I don't have it capped, and that's why I'm willing to do this. I would never, ever take a piece of fiber and just jam it into an SFP, because any oil or dirt that you've got on the edge of this connector is now jammed into...
Can't you just like rub it on your shirt to get it off, or lick it or something? Isn't that how fiber works?
I will destroy you.
Should I not have been doing that in the basement then?
Oh, don't even get me started in the basement. We've had a piece of fiber hanging down from the no-hole for the long... It's wrapped around pipes, and someone shoved it back up into the ceiling.
It's not connected to anything. It's okay.
That's not good. It's just
it makes Padre sad. Don't treat fiber bad.
Fiber. Now, when we come back, we are going to go all into quadcopter frames. It's a continuing series for our quadcopter build. You need to choose a frame before you start choosing all the equipment you're going to put on the frame. We're going to show you how you go ahead and choose that. But before that, hey, Windows 8.1 users, you got some sticky windows? Let me help you fix it. If you've been using Windows 8.1 with multiple monitors, then you've probably noticed that Microsoft has changed the way that it allows the cursor to move between screens. Before, you could just easily glide from one screen to the next, but Microsoft has locked in the cursor so that you need to have a little bit of speed in order to get through that border. Otherwise, it will just bounce. Believe it or not, this is actually a feature that makes sense. Microsoft wanted you to have an easy way to snap windows inside each display, and that's what that hard border does. But if you're used to the way that Windows 7 treats multiple monitors, it can be a bit jarring or downright annoying. Unfortunately, Microsoft really doesn't want you to mess with the settings that would change the hard border. Fortunately, we don't care what Microsoft wants.
To fix your sticky windows, you'll need to use the Windows Registry Editor. That's some pretty powerful mojo, so I'm going to take you step by step. In fact, it's so powerful, I'm going to remind you again of how powerful it is in about 24 seconds. Hit the Windows key, then start typing regedit. You should see an entry for regedit.exe. Right-click the entry and choose Run as Administrator from the drop-down menu. The Registry Editor window will now open. We're going to be editing registry keys. These are the configuration settings for the OS. Let me repeat, this is powerful mojo, so be very careful in here. The registry controls the way Windows works, and changing the wrong settings can make your OS completely unresponsive. Follow these instructions step by step to avoid borking your installation. First, find the key labeled HKey_current_user in the left column of the editor. Click the triangle next to the key and a new set of folders will drop down. Now select the triangle next to Control Panel, then click the folder named Desktop. You'll see multiple objects in the right-hand column. Scroll down to the one labeled Mouse Monitor Escape Speed, all one word. If that entry does not exist, then right-click in an empty area of the right column and create a new D-word value with the name of Mouse Monitor Escape Speed. Double-click that entry and a screen titled Edit D-Word will open. Set the value data to 1 and leave everything else the way it is. Click OK. Moving back to the left-hand column, but staying within the HKey_current_user key, click the triangle next to Software, then Microsoft, then Windows, which should also open Current Version. Then click the triangle next to Immersive Shell, and now click the folder titled Edge UI. In the right column, you'll again see entries. You need to find the key labeled Mouse Monitor Escape Speed, all one word. But again, if that entry does not exist, and this time it probably doesn't, then right-click in an empty area of the right column and create a new keyword value with the name of Mouse Monitor Escape Speed. Double-click that entry and a screen titled Edit Keyword will open. Set the value data to 1 and leave everything else the way it is. Then click OK. We now need to restart Explorer so that the new settings will take. You could just restart Windows, or you can hit Ctrl-Alt-Delete to bring up the Task Manager. Find the task labeled Windows Explorer and click the Restart button in the Task Manager. The UI will refresh, and Windows Explorer will restart with the new settings. Now, when you move your mouse between screen borders, there should be no hard border, no sticky windows. Be free, run wild, and experience the power of the registry hack.
Be free. Be free.
Set yourself free and don't bork your system.
I will say, I know there's people in the chat room who are saying, I never have this problem with Windows 8.
Right. Because I have a dual monitor setup, but you're saying side to side isn't affected.
Side to side is really not a problem. There is no edge border. The problem is if you stack monitors, so you have monitors up top, you're always going to run into a hard border problem. For a while, it didn't bother me, but then that whole idea of you have to give your mouse speed to break through some imaginary barrier, I'm like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, to be fair, though, also, you kind of get crazy with monitors.
I do.
Like,
I do, yes.
I had, my edit machine was just 2 monitors until you came along, like, you know what? We could put more monitors here. And next thing I know, I had quad monitors set
I don't know what it is. I use them all. It doesn't matter. I have 4 monitors for my desk here, and they're always full. It's always full of stuff.
It always looks like something sinister is happening, too, because you usually have, like, IP Viking on one screen, the chat room on the other one.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, Padre, you've got like a tower of quadcopters here.
Oh, quad.
So I heard you like quadcopters.
Yo, dog. I heard you like quads.
I have a feeling we wouldn't be able to fly all these at the same time. But,
well, we could fly each one individually. Although these, since they don't have any electronics on them.
Well, we're going to get to that, right?
They won't fly it so well. Yeah. All right, so what we've got here is a representation of some of the quads that we're playing with. We've got the trainer. So the trainer is a sub, what we call a 250 class. Then we've got this. This is a 250 class. Go ahead and hold on to that. This is the one that we're actually going to be building the most because it's easy to do. We've got this bad boy, this is a 450 class. So we're getting bigger. And then we've got this monstrosity that looks like this would be like a horror.
Yeah, that looks like a
quadcopter.
weapon. It looks like something that a Klingon would attack you with.
Exactly. This is a full collapsible frame quadcopter called the 525. Alex, go ahead and run that B-roll, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why you would choose different types of quadcopter frames. Now, the 250, of course, is the simplest. This is what I like to start people off with in their builds because it's a unibody. You've got a single frame that has all the members that you need to be able to mount your motors and your controllers and your electronics. This is like, for example, this is the flight controller that I'm using. It's a KK.
That controller is a lot bigger than the one on the.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, because this is a way more powerful controller. I can do all these crazy settings that make it more stable, make it more agile, make it more hostile to users. It also has detachable feet so that it stands up. Now the nice thing about this is it's very easy to transport. You're not really going to have to worry about where you put this thing. It'll fit inside of a bag once you take off the landing feet, and it's super, super stable. Now, this is the second kind of frame that I've been playing around with. This is the 450. They call this one the flame wheel, and the idea is you've got these 4 independent arms mounted on this. Now, I like this feature. This panel here is actually the power distribution. So it's a PCB, it's a printed circuit board.
Yeah.
but that distributes power to your electronic speed controllers from your battery to your motors.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah. Now, the other cool thing about this is these are super lightweight members, but it also means since they're individual, if you break one, you can get a replacement without having to replace the entire frame, unless, of course, you smash the middle. Now, putting this together was really easy. Imagine most of these frames are like sandwiches. So you have the arms, and you have a layer at the bottom of the arm and a layer on the top of the arm. That's what gives you the most stability in your quad build. Something that I have been doing a lot with the 450s is just sort of figuring out the optimal load balance. As you get bigger, you kind of start moving weight away from the center of the quad, and you can have issues. Now, this one on here, this is the 525. Now, the 525 is going to run into problems because it is so dang big. It's very hard to transport a 525. So this one was designed to be collapsible. So it uses a bunch of these fiberglass parts.
Weird landing gear.
Weird landing gear. This is the part that allows you to open them up and close it. So,
okay.
Yeah,
I thought you'd want to tighten that down when you're in flight, though, right?
Oh yeah. No,
yeah. Why would it do that?
You're in flight and suddenly your legs just go, oh no, what's going on?
The blades start hitting each other.
This is probably my least favorite of all the builds that I'm doing. I flew this one over the weekend. I just don't like it.
No, can you pinpoint why?
I think it's not as rigid as I want it to be.
So that doesn't give you as much control as you would like?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different things that I don't really like about it. But I mean, I'm not saying that you're not going to like it. And the other thing is this was also really cheap. So of the 3 frames, this was actually the cheapest. I think this was like a $10 frame.
Oh, yeah.
So I should have locked that down. So yeah, it's going to have issues. That's just how it works.
And the controller for this frame, is that the control? What is that?
Oh, this is the power distribution. So, so like on this one, the power distribution is integrated. Yeah. On this one, the power distribution comes in a little board. On this 250, the power distribution is just this harness. It's a cable harness that has power coming in from the battery and then going out to each of the individual electronic speed controllers.
Okay.
Now, here's the fun part. What? No matter how small or how big your build is, every quadcopter is going to have the same basic parts. You've got a frame. On that frame, you'll have motors. If it's a quadcopter, you're going to have 4 motors.
Right.
On the motors, you're going to have props. Those motors will be connected to one electronic speed controller each. This is what an electronic speed controller looks like if you go to the overhead. It's just this little device which allows me to electronically control how much power is going to the motor.
Just like when we were playing with the lunchbox.
Exactly. So this is actually I could take this out and use it in the lunchbox, but this one has 4 of them because you need 1 for each motor.
Okay.
Now, so you're going to have the 4 ESCs. You're also going to have the flight controller. You saw that in the video. I actually loaded it in here. Inside, it's actually go to the overhead again. It's inside this case. This will give me control over the handling characteristics and the setup of my quadcopter. But it also controls the 4 speed controllers, which in turn control the motors. Right. And then you have this. This is the receiver, which plugs into my controller, which controls the electronic speed controllers, which drive the motor, which get their power from the battery. So every quad is going to have those basic parts, no matter how big or how small. In fact, if I wanted to, I could strip all of the pieces off of this and put it on this 525 frame, and it would work. It would be kind of crappy because these motors are way too small.
Right.
But it would work.
But yeah, you have all the basic parts for that. Okay. Yeah. And then, so this controller that you have works with this remote that you've bought, and then you've like linked them together?
Yeah, you can, in the more advanced controllers, remote control setups, radio control setups. I always say remote control, it pisses off people. I should know better. I'm sorry about that. But you can buy additional receivers, and then you use what's called the binding button. So on the back of this, there's a key here that I can press to bind it to that particular control. So
that's cool.
I could buy 1 transmitter, buy 3 receivers, and then I just bind to whatever chopper I want to fly that particular day.
That's nice. And how much was that controller again? Wasn't that like 60 bucks?
It's not that expensive. Yeah. There's much more advanced ones, and many people decide to get one of the more advanced models, especially if they're going to be doing this a lot, like an 8-channel controller.
Right.
So that they could do multiple FPV or some weird stuff with how the performance of the quad works.
Yeah.
But you could just buy several receivers, put them into all your builds, and then because you're not going to damage your transmitter. Your transmitter's not in the air. It's going to last.
Unless you get really angry. I crashed again. No, Padre, smash. Yeah.
Okay, now people are going to be asking, okay, so what's the advantage of getting a big or a small frame? Well, like we've seen with the trainer, small frames tend to be a little bit easier to control.
Right.
And you can fly these things indoors. They don't hurt as much if you get hit.
That is an advantage, especially when you're working in a confined space like we tend to. Yeah. But then the disadvantage is not as much battery that you can have, right?
Exactly.
And it's not like it could carry anything either, other than maybe a Post-it.
This one could do an FPV system, so I could run a GoPro on this.
Nice.
Now you also will notice I'm grounded right now because I'm waiting for my replacement props, because I ran this into a chain link fence.
Oh.
And when you start, especially when you start using these, because
these look kind of delicate.
Do not fly with damaged props.
Oh.
I'm going to say that several times. There's a temptation to say, oh, it's not so bad. No, because these things are spinning several thousand times a minute.
Yeah.
And if you have got a damaged prop and it just breaks off, it's going to throw shrapnel.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. I just thought, oh yeah, you won't be able to control it as well.
Bad. Just don't do that. It's not safe. In fact, if you're going to be doing quads, you really should be wearing safety goggles. I don't, because I'm a bad boy and I live on the edge.
Yeah, you're such a rebel.
Because I'm stupid. Okay, no, but you're absolutely right. The bigger the quad frame, just the more it can carry.
Right.
And the more means bigger motors. Bigger motors equal bigger props. Like, for example, again, take a look at the prop on the 250 and take a look at the prop here that I would use on the 450 or the 525. The reason for that is, I mean, if I try to put a 10-inch prop on this, the props would actually run into each other.
Yeah, that's why you have the larger frames with the extension.
Exactly. So the 450s can do these 10-inch props. Let me put this trainer over here. The 450s can do these 10-inch props without problem. I mean, they won't run into any other propeller on the assembly. The 525s, you can actually use like 12-inch props. That's getting ridiculous. But the bigger the prop, the bigger the motor you're going to need.
Right.
The bigger the motor you're going to need, the bigger the speed controller you're going to need. The bigger the speed controller, the bigger the battery. So it is kind of diminishing returns. You could make a huge a huge quadcopter out of everything.
Yeah.
But then you're going to have to put more electronics into it, which means you're going to need more battery. And the more battery makes it heavier, which means you need more battery, and which decreases performance.
And does it become more unwieldy as it gets larger?
I think my building skill just isn't at the point where I can make a big quad and make it flyable, like nicely flyable.
Because like the trainer one we have, this thing, we can fly this in circles around things, and if you get good enough at it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not saying it's not controllable. It's harder to control a bigger one. That's why I'm saying start with a smaller one. Now, there are some things about the 450 that I like with this style. So with this style of quad, with these size of props, I do get a lot of power, and I actually get more stability than a trainer. Because think about it. If I take my thrust and I push it out a little bit further, I have a much more stable platform. Even a 250, essentially, it's like one column of thrust, really.
Right.
They're so close together, it's not really differentiated.
And does it get pushed around a lot in a breeze?
It can get pushed around. No, so what I'd say is there's a couple of things you should think about when you're going to choose the frame for your quad. And choosing the frame is really going to guide all the decisions that you make about your quad from hereafter. Because if you get a smaller frame, it means you're going to get a smaller motor, which means smaller props, which means smaller speed controllers, et cetera, et cetera. So choose wisely. The first thing is, how much area do you have to fly your quad in?
Yeah, if you have an apartment, then you're probably going to want to get something like that.
Yeah, or something like this. I mean, if you live in the middle of a city and it's really hard to find wide open spaces, don't get a huge quad, because you're not going to be able to fly this thing. Get something like this. Get a 250, or start with the trainer, of course, because this I actually could fly indoors. I would never fly a 450 indoors unless I had a palatial estate.
Oh, yeah.
You'll hit everything.
Like a convention center.
Like this. Like we could fly it in here, because there's no expensive equipment in the studio that we might break.
Absolutely not, I mean, you hit anything, it'll be all right.
The second thing is, how will you be transporting your quad? Again, if you live in a place with wide open spaces, a 525 with a non-collapsible frame might be perfectly acceptable, because you walk 20 steps and you're ready to fly. If you have to put it in a car or on a bike, the smaller frames are better, or collapsible frames are better.
Well, and whatever fits your budget too. The bigger you get, the more money you're going to have to spend too.
Now, also, are you going for speed? Are you going for maneuverability? Are you going for longevity?
For speed.
Yeah, exactly. Or
I want to race them, Padre.
Then, I'd say if you're going to race, get a 250 FPV. They're smaller. You can stretch out the wheelbase, and you can really get them going. 450s and 525s can carry a lot more, but they don't have the agility of like a 250 class.
Okay, so if I want to race them, I'm doing 250. If I want to do, like some
awesome GoPro shots, get a 450 or a 525.
Cool.
But again, as we've said, you can transport the gear back and forth on frames.
Right.
So, maybe you'll just get different frames.
What about build time? How long did it take you to put that together?
This is slightly faster because it's unibody. I don't have to assemble anything.
Right.
This was slightly longer. This took a long, long time, and I really don't like it. So, that was, and it was mostly because, especially on these cheap frames, the instructions are so bad. I was like, I had to figure it out. I'm like, okay, how many screws did they give me?
Right.
Well, I need this many to complete it this way. So it was.
Yeah, you didn't get this at IKEA, did you?
No, this is an Amazon thing. Also, how much flight time do you want? Because that will determine how much battery power you need, which will also affect the size of your frame. How much power do you want to be able to deliver to your motors? Because that will size up your electronic speed controllers, and that will determine where you locate them on your frame, because you need to keep them cool. Do you want FPV, first-person view? Do you want GPS? Do you want nav to be able to program in waypoints? And this is something I think you really need to pay attention to early on. How likely are you to break it? Because if you're gonna snap this thing, if you know you're gonna snap this thing, get an inexpensive frame before you buy the super expensive carbon composite. Because all of these frames that are on the table right now are under 20 bucks.
Okay.
You can buy a frame for as low as $12, all the way up to, I've seen frames for multiple thousands for carbon composite 8 rotor craft. So, yeah, that's it.
And if you know yourself as well as we do, don't just get the cheap one, because
you're gonna crash it, and then you won't be so sad.
Brian, put that frame down.
Is it because I'm about to hit my?
Well, because it looks like an ice axe.
You're gonna break it.
Yeah.
I know you better.
Yeah, I was hitting the mic earlier with it.
I noticed.
Lawn Dog in the chat room asked if there was any advantage to using a triple blade prop versus like a dual propeller.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make much of a difference.
We're going to get to that in 2 episodes. In the next episode, we're actually talking about motors and speed controllers, because you do have to size those. But not, pick a frame, because that's going to determine what kind of motor and speed controller you get. There are advantages to using 3-blade props and disadvantages. I prefer 2 blades. I don't like the 3-blade ones. Some people really like them. I'm not a big fan.
Just aesthetically? Or?
No. I mean, it actually does change the performance.
The dynamic of the flight.
Right,
okay.
Right. But we'll talk all about that in an upcoming episode.
No spoilers.
Now, I know this was a lot of information to take in. We're actually going to give you all these notes in our show notes. Which, Brian, where can they find them?
twit.tv/KH. And not only are our show notes there, all our past episodes. So you're definitely going to want to go there to follow along the parts of this project that we're doing. And you can subscribe, which would be great too.
Please do that. We like that. Yeah, subscribe, and you know what? As long as you're going to subscribe, why not jump into our Google Plus group? It's a fantastic community. I love pulling questions and projects out of there, because there's just really good ideas. Go to gplus.to/twitkh.
We really should do a hangout though soon.
Oh, that's right. You know what? Hey, you want to do one this Saturday?
Saturday?
Maybe not Saturday. It's Friday. Let's do one on Friday. Let's do one tomorrow.
Yeah, Friday. Sure.
We're going to do a know-how, the very first know-how hangout tomorrow, straight from the know-hole. We're going to talk all about what you want to see in future episodes of Know-How. And it's just a great chance to talk to you.
I think we've figured out how to do hangouts.
Maybe
we should do a know-how about hangouts, so then we can do the hangouts with the know-how.
Yo, dog, I heard you like hangouts.
Or talk to Pixel Core, because I think that's like what they do.
That's what they do, yeah. Also, if you don't like Google+, you can always find us on Twitter. I'm twitter.com/PadreSJ. That's @PadreSJ.
And I am @cranky_hippo. And that's where you can find our daily exploits and lots of pictures of corgis from me. I don't know. What else do you post on there?
Mostly food.
Yeah.
Lots of food. And Giants. The Giants games when I cry.
Don't forget about Alex, too.
And don't forget Alex, our TD. He's at ANELF3.
You never know what that guy's going to be up to.
It's funny. Over the week, the last couple of days, he's tweeting, and I'm seeing him in airports. I'm like, where's he going?
He did like a 3-day trip to New York and back.
Gizwiz.
Yeah, Gizwiz.
Go figure. Also, don't forget that we do this show live every Thursday at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific time. Just jump into live.twit.tv, and as long as you're watching live, where you get to see our pre-show, our post-show, and all the bloopers, jump into our chat room at irc.twit.tv. We'll talk to you during the show, and we'll figure out whether or not you're getting the material that we're giving to you, whether or not you're receiving the knowledge pouring into your knowledge hole.
Sometimes we've gone over it so many times in our heads that we skip steps where we don't think of other questions. So.
Exactly. But until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballecer.
And I'm Brian Burnett.
And now that you know how,
go do it.
Actually, that one would be scary.
Yeah, this is gnarly.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on here.